Hey folks, this is Chris with Fast Rack Overland. That's right, I am not in the woods, I am here in my shop. And today we're going to do a rig walk around of a Jeep Gladiator that belongs to my buddy Robbie. He's my partner with Overland of America, and he's going to tell you all about this awesome Jeep that he built up. So here he is, folks.
Hey, so I'm Robbie. This is my 2023 Jeep Gladiator Overland Edition. It is sitting on an AccuAir suspension. It's full air ride. It's got about 7 inches of travel from up down, maybe up to 8 or 9. It's got a lot of travel on it, but it sits on 37-inch Fury off-road tires wrapped around a true beadlock from KG1 Force. I did black on the beadlocks, you know, because scratches, you hit rocks, things like that. It's way easier to touch up. Luckily, I haven't done that yet. So it's pretty clean, even though I do take it out. It's got a little bit of pinstripes here and there, but you really can't see them that much, especially on the camera. So when I first started building this, I was just now getting into the overland industry, and I wanted to build it for SEMA. We took it out there, we debuted it out there, and I did what I thought was overland style, but it was more overlandish. So I actually call this build overlandish, and we've got a sticker on the other side that shows it. So let's go ahead and show you the interior real quick. So what we did, since it was at SEMA, we wanted to get a little flashy with the interior, so we contacted our friends over at Leah Leather, and we did a full custom Napa grain orange leather. And this is called Hermes orange leather. It's got custom stitching in it. It's got grommets in it. Just it's beautiful. It's fully heated leather too. I don't think it's cooled. Heated leather though, for sure. So we've got that done in it. My whole idea when I built this is I wanted it gray and black with some orange accents because we were doing Overland of America and one of our primary colors is orange, so I wanted everything to match. So let's start up front here with the Expedition 1 bumpers. I've ran a lot of bumpers on a lot of different builds that I've done, but these are probably the most solid bumper I've ever had on a build. I did want something that was really capable because I was going to be going out with it. So we've got the Expedition 1 stubby Jeep bumper. We've got the push bar on the front. My bumpers are upfitted with my Rigid Industries. They're my yellow driving lights. I've got a Warn winch in here with a factor 55 hook on it. And then I've also got these shackles that are from Moose Knuckle, and they're called the Jowl Shackle, and they're a split shackle so you can get a rope in and out really quick. And you're probably noticing I do have a tow bar on there. That's because I own $1 million RV, and just kidding, I don't really own $1 million RV. I've got an entry level and I got it on sale, but I do go out RVing with my family as well. And I put that on there before I ever built the Jeep up, and I thought, we'll just leave it on there because I'll tow this behind the RV, but since I built it up, I've never towed it behind the RV. But I'm gonna leave it there anyway for maybe the next owner.
All right, so, but folks, one thing he has towed with this thing was my truck when I got stuck.
Oh yeah, that's when these Moose Knuckle shackles came in handy.
Yeah, they sure did.
Oh, Chris's Tacoma, when it was two-wheel drive still.
Yep.
Got stuck in a little muddy rut, and we had to connect to it and pull it out. But
yeah, that was embarrassing. That was not much of a mud hole.
I made sure to let him know that his Jeep was pulling out a Toyota. Yeah. Another thing we did in the front is we did upgrade the grill. This is a 2023, but I have a 2024 grill on it. They really did a lot to change the grill. It does have the 7, bars that it's always had, but it's just a little bit different looking. I had this little piece paint matched, well, not paint matched, but orange accented. Everything is paint matched, and then the black, we've got flat black on it. Put this on here to protect from, rock chips and limbs and all kinds of stuff, but just a little bit of paint protector. So beside the Rigid driving lights, I have everything Rigid on here. I've been working with Rigid Industries for a long time. Everything I have on here is amber. I really like the look of amber lights at night. They work great on the trail if you got somebody in front of you dusting you out like Chris dusts me out, and it's nighttime. The amber does really come in handy. Yeah, that's a fact. I catch a lot of dust. One of the cool things here though that goes along with these lights, and it's a totally different company, but I wanted to run this 6-inch Adapt GPS light on my ditch lights here, and I couldn't find a solid enough mount, and I kept looking around, and I found this company, and it was called Badass Mounts, and I thought, well, they must be pretty badass. But it's got a pull pin here, And you just pull the pin, and it's got all these different positions that you can do it in. So I can leave them straight if I want. I can put them to the ditch, or I can put them all the way to the side. So they work great, and you know, the name says it all. They are badass mounts. So my friends over at DB8 Off-Road have really worked with me a lot on different builds, and I love their fenders. I have their fenders, I have their inner fenders, I have their A-pillar mount for my rigid light going across, and these are really awesome. This is a step. I've got one on each door, and I've got them on both sides, but these help out a lot when I'm trying to get up into my roam cases. I keep my recovery gear up there on one side, the other side I keep my chairs, so I'm always using them. Every time we go out camping, I'm having to climb up on these things, but they come in really handy. Besides the Expedition 1 front bumper that I showed you, I also have the Expedition 1 rock rails that they made specifically for the Gladiator. Just like the front bumper, these things are heavy duty. When me and Chris put these on, it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was simple, but it wasn't hard. You know, they mount up exactly where they're supposed to mount up to, but they are heavy.
Yeah, holding them up, I think, was the, yeah, that was the hardest part, was just holding them up and getting them started.
Yeah, it's like bench pressing.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's come around here to the back though, because I have one more thing from Expedition 1, and this is what really attracted me to the Expedition 1 company. I had been looking around. So Chris has a swing out on his Tacoma, and I thought, man, I really need one. I don't have a spare, you know, I can't take a spare out with me. If I do, I got to put it in the camper shell. And so I kept looking around, and I found Expedition 1, and they've got this dual swing out, and it actually houses my 37-inch spare. It just swings open. Their locks are great, and just lets me open everything up, so now I can carry my spare a lot more safer. Get into my tailgate, everything clears great. So when I first started overlanding, Chris had this contraption on his tailgate, and I thought, dude, what is that? What's that for? And he's like, dude, that's my cutting board, it's my prep station. And I was like, where can I get that? And he was like, well, I made mine. He goes, but there's a company out there called Mountain Hatch that makes them for your Jeep. And so I called it Mountain Hatch and got me one on order. And this is one of my most used things. I mean, I use it as a step to get up and lift up my tent. I prep on it, I cook on it, put my phone down on it, I put my battery charger on it, but this thing is one of the most used things that I have. If you also notice inside here, while we're talking about the interior of the bed, I do have a bed rug, and not a lot of people will leave these in when they put a deck system in, but we did leave it in because it really cuts down on the dust. Getting in the bed, having a camper shell, as much as you can seal off is great.
Oh man, everybody that has a camper shell fights a dust problem. And when we left this in, the first time you went down a dusty road and we opened it up and there was no dust, I was blown away.
Oh yeah, man. Because like
blown away.
Well, with you, what really made me want to do it too is you don't have a shell, but I've seen shells, you know, that aren't sealed off. But like with you, with all the dusting you had to do when we would get to a campsite and stuff,
it's horrible. Yeah.
I've really never had hardly a speck of dust in this thing. Whenever I open it, it's nice and clean. But we do have the decked single drawer system. This is their new system that they released last year. Pulls out pretty far. I keep all of my camping gear in here. I keep my pots and pans, my cutting board, my stove, my pipes for my diesel heater, just pretty much anything that I need, all stores inside this. Even my my butt wipes, my dude wipes, those store inside there. And anything big I store up here, like my Dometic table, my chairs I store up on the roof in the roam cases. But when me and Chris were building this, putting it together, he noticed with my camper shell, I have an ARE. It's I believe it's a CX, I believe. I could be wrong on that, but my camper shell is normally meant for contractors, and it has a built-in rack. And the reason I got this with the built-in rack is because it has more strength, and I could put a rooftop tent and some other things on top. But Chris was looking at it, he's like, hey, you know that slide that I have from Extrusion Overland, I bet we could make one of those work inside your deck. So we contacted Extrusion Overland, and I needed a place to put my propane and my water port, so it worked out perfect. And so you just pull it out. It's got my little shower set up in here, and got my fuel for when I'm cooking, and I just slide it out if I need to get to it. But This thing is great. It's a lot of people are surprised that I actually have that in there. Yeah. So when I first, I wouldn't say when I first met Chris, because I've known him for 25 years, but when I first started going overlanding with Chris, he had a wedge style tent, and I think it's a clamshell. And so he would just pop his tent up, maybe he'd be ready in you know, mere seconds it seemed like, and I'm still over there messing with mine. And so I was like, I need to get a wedge style tent. And he's like, check this company out. They've got one, except it gives you more room because it's got a bend in the middle. So this is an Intrepid Camp Gear 2.5 tent, and it's so roomy. It's real breezy too. It's got plenty of windows in it. It's got a skylight in it. It comes with some storage compartments inside of it, but it's been a great tent so far. It's really easy to use, fast setup, fast breakdown. I've got a Shady Overlander 270 plus awning. This thing is massive, and it's really strong awning too. When me and Chris first met Shady Overlander, we were at SEMA walking around, and they were literally hanging on these things like they were monkey bars, just hanging on them. And this is a freestanding awning, and it was just crazy. And me and Chris were both like, man, we got to get one of those awnings. So they do have poles in case you need to use them, but really that's just going to be for heavy wind and stuff. But they've got lights underneath. You just plug them up into your battery power, and you know, they've got different switches for them. They're not amber, but I think it's 2 or 3 different tones of white light on those. So one thing you can never go wrong with is having enough fuel. And of course this is not a diesel Jeep, but I do have a diesel Rotopacks here, and that's for my diesel heater that I use in the winter. And then extra fuel container, and then I've got another extra fuel container and water container in the back. But these are actually mounted to the glass, as you can see. And you might ask yourself, how are those sitting on the glass? Well, it's mounted with Sea Suckers, and that's another really cool company. These Sea Suckers, you can mount these things anywhere on a flat surface, and even if it's a slight texture, they'll still grip. And these things, I mean, I think I have to pump them up, you know, just give them a few little pumps probably once every 3-4 weeks, you know. I'll check them before I go out on a drive. But
they made it all the way to Vegas and back with rain and everything.
Yeah, and I never had to pump them at all. But underneath of this window is one of my favorite areas, and I've used my steel axes, and then I've got my medical bag here, and it's mounted also on this extrusion slide that I pulled out. And Chris gave me some of his extra molly panels, and so we set this up, and I just love the look of this. Whenever we're at an event and it's on display, I'll just pop this up and leave it up and just kind of show that area of the Jeep off. But this is a really cool spot. I really like that area. So I'm going to show you how this AccuAir suspension full air ride works out. So it's, like I said, it's fully adjustable air ride, and one of the really cool things about it is when we go out camping, Chris can pick whatever campsite he wants that's the most level, but I can camp wherever, and I just, you know, turn it on, hit the controller, automatically levels up for me. If I feel like it needs to be a little bit more level, then I can control it. I can control each corner individually. I can control just the front if I need to, but it works out great. It's full onboard air, and so if I need to air up, you know, if we air down our tires, I can use my onboard air system that I have that came with the AccuAir. But this has been a great suspension so far. I haven't had any trouble out of it. I've put 17,000 miles on this, and this has been on since probably it had 300 miles on it. So it's been a great suspension. All my lighting is controlled by my S-Pod here. I've got my scene lights, my ditch lights, my chase bar. I've got a chase bar in the rear from Rigid. But everything is controlled from my S-Pod. I've got a Rigid controller right here that controls my adapt lights, which are my longer light bars. Got a bulletproof mount, magnetized mount right here that I use for my phone. I've got an iPad mount here for, you know, when I need to use my iPad for my GPS. But all in all, I mean, this has been a great vehicle for me. I love going out in it. It gets a lot of attention, especially when I open it up and people see the seats. So one thing you can not do without when you're out is my choice is a Midland radio. So this is a 50 watt. It's the most high powered GMRS radio that you can get. And if you notice, mine has a little Jeep face on it. It's their Jeep edition, but this comes in handy. It's got a really long range. Not really sure how far. I mean, 6, 8, 10 miles maybe.
Yeah, we've been running around town and gotten.
Yeah, like you were driving home and I was driving home, and I was probably picking you up 5, 6, 7 miles away.
Yeah.
Now, if we were out in the woods and I got more than a mile away from Chris, I would probably be on this thing. Hey, where you at? Where you at? But I have, I don't know, embarrassingly, not ever been overlanding by myself yet. So,
folks, I've actually went out and done a couple of solo trips, and I keep trying to talk Robbie into it, but he's just not ready for the solo yet.
Yeah, but you tell me about, man, I was out and I was sitting by the campfire and I had my pistol in my lap and I kept hearing things, and I'm like,
true story.
I'm like, yeah, I don't know about that. Like if I have my pistol in my lap and I'm hearing things, I would be afraid I'd start firing off into the woods.
Well, what about old Matt with Ozark Overland Adventures? That dude, he will solo camp all over the place.
I know, he goes everywhere.
He does.
If you don't know who Matt is, look him up, Ozark Overland Adventures. But he's got, I think, like 100,000 YouTube subscribers. But he goes everywhere, and he goes by himself all the time. His wife Kara goes with him some, but that guy's out by himself all the time.
Yeah.
But so that's the interior. So when I first started doing this overlanding stuff, well, you know, I'm kind of overlandish, but I asked Chris, I'm like, Chris, why do you not have a back seat? Like, what would possess you to take your back seat out? You've got a truck. And he was like, man, you're gonna need more room. He goes, you're gonna do it too. You're gonna take your back seat out. I'm like, no, man, I got this fancy leather in here. No way I'm taking this stuff out. And of course, I needed more room, so we contacted Goose Gear and we did a full seat delete in the rear. And normally I have my Dometic fridge sitting right there, but I took it out so we could clean it up a little bit because I am getting ready to sell this thing. So it's been great. I just started putting Goose Gear in my Grenadier the other night with Chris helping me, and I can't wait to get that done. But yeah, definitely needed more room, and you know, the size of these mattresses rolled up, and when my fridge is in there, and then my bag for, you know, when I'm going out, my battery, you know, charger, my battery pack, all that, it fills up pretty quick. But it's these are some great people. If you ever need a seat delete, hit up Goose Gear. They're great.
Robbie, get that grill off of that Jeep, man.
Yeah, so you told me when I first built my Jeep and I had this Angry Bird grill on here that I was gonna get laughed off the planet, and I don't even think I waited very long. I ordered this new 2024 grill, so yeah, this thing gotta go.
Great, now Matt's not gonna come after you.
Of course, this isn't a diesel, but I do use a diesel heater in the summer, so I've got a
in the
diesel.
summer?
Oh, did I say that? Winter. So
winter. Yeah. And the heater's still on, and Robbie's pointing that out. So this is going to be a blooper. Shop here. And today we're going to do a rig walk around. Rig walk around. Rig. That sounds funny, doesn't it? Rig walk around.